Hi God, it's Alec here. Listen, I'm going to do a podcast just now, and it's to Rangers fans, and you know what they're like. They're hard as nails. They're going to rip me to pieces, but I'm falling to pieces anyway at the prospect of never seeing Steve Davis playing football again. Can you just make Steve Davis play football again, please, God? I mean, he walks like an angel, he moves like an angel, he's got the touch of an angel. I just assumed he was a celestial being, the same as yourself, and that's why I wasn't worried the last 12 months when he wasn't playing, because I thought he was coming back. I thought you'd be looking after your own, and I just really don't want to live in a world where Stephen Davis isn't playing football. Yeah, I would just, we'll cancel the prayers. We'll cancel the prayers for my hair and thinness. Okay, I just don't mind being fat and baldy, because who's looking at me when Steve Davis is playing football? I was going to do the stop all the clocks, W.H. Jordan, but I'd rather do Cher, turn back time. Just if you would just turn back time, God, and have Stephen Davis, even just like 5 minutes every second week off the bench, because I just don't want to live in a world where Stephen Davis isn't playing football. Thanks very much, God. Yours sincerely, Alec. Amen. Hi, folks. Welcome to your Jersey Night immediate post-match reaction pod, coming to you in association with Forest Precision Engineering and our friends at Football Prizes. My name's Alec Anderson. I'm talking to you, just a matter of seconds after Rangers 1-0 win over St Mirren and Paisley in the Paisley Road derby today, in today's 12:30 live on Sky SPFL Premiership kick-off, putting us temporarily to within 2 points and 4 goals of Celtic at the top of the table. The post-winter break Blues beast has been slain, thoroughly killed by Rangers today, even though there's no winter break next season, but we got it right at the last there. That is 3 consecutive competitive wins in the space of, it's less than 7 days. We hadn't even kicked off at Dumbarton this time last week. All in that red kit, which is starting to look less Aldershot Town and more Independiente, the blue shorts with the red top and all that. But we go into a week without a midweek game now. We get a wee break. That lets it all sink into the system that we're going to have the blue kit back on for 4 games in the space of a fortnight against very beatable opposition across 2 different competitions at Ibrox. Celtic won their game 1-0 today, scored a goal in the first minute at home to Ross County, and I think we might be getting to them. They couldn't build on that. That's not the response you were expecting from them in that game. Rangers having won Wednesday night at Hibernian and winning today at St Mirren, 2 venues at which Celtic have struggled over the past couple of seasons, so it's all to play for. And Philippe Clement, this is what at Paisley today, the venue where the last time we were there, the banner was up and the Rangers support saying 2 trophies in 11 seasons. You took your eye off the ball, you're letting us all down, whatever it was. Well, that's since then. Today we turned up as 3 trophies in the space of 3 calendar years. We're through to the last 16 in Europe, and now Philippe Clement has added another subtle string to his bow, but one that's every bit as important. A good friend of mine, never met the guy, a good Twitter friend of mine, a chap called Mike Black, got in touch today after the game and said Michael Beale would have lost that game 3-0 today. And you're thinking, well, Michael Beale won 3-0 the only time he took Rangers to Paisley. In fact, this is the 4th different manager in our last 4 visits to Paisley. Quite an amazing statistic. That the last time that Gio managed this was at this venue today. We drew 1 each, but we won the last 3. But the thing is, you know exactly what Mike meant. For example, we struggled in a game like Aberdeen at Ibrox this season. Michael Beale's last game, we ended up losing it 3-1. It's not going to be sugar or shite with Clement. He's not so bothered about how many, if you can put 25 goals past somebody on a good day. He's worried about setting the lowest bar for Rangers performances as high as he can possibly set it. He wants to get that steely core. He wants the weakest link in the chain to be as strong as possible. It's all about being able to grind it out, and we ground this one out today. Never really properly threatened by St Mirren, but I think it sums it up. The only goal of the game came 13 minutes and 50 seconds. 14th minute of the game, Cyril Dessers. That's 4 games in the trot Cyril scored for us, if you want to throw in the friendly against Copenhagen. You're thinking 13 minutes, 13, that's unlucky. 50 seconds in the end of it. All right, okay, it's not quite unlucky. The crowd was announced over the PA system today. I'm watching the telly. You would have heard it if you're in the stadium, definitely. So I heard it even over the telly. 6,665. 666, but we are 5 in the end of it. So I've not watched The Omen for a while. Is it Revelations chapter 13 verse 18, chapter 30? I don't know my Bible chapter and verse, but let him that hath knowledge know the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and it is 603 score and 6, unless there's a 5 in the end, which means you're going to get all 3 points at Paisley. So it's evil. Just in the cusp of unluckiness, the cusp of evil all through that game, and it was certainly evil to watch, but we got there in the end. Character right in there, Philippe Clement, the kind of character that we had under any team that Steve Davis played in. Steve Davis playing for him. He's in the gantry today alongside Chris Sutton and Chris Boyd. Was Steve Davis the last time he was here? It was his last game as Rangers manager. Those 2 games he was manager of Rangers. As the boys were saying last night in the preview pod, John and Scott, he gave Ross McCausland his first appearance for the Rangers first team. He didn't start the game. Ross McCausland had come on as a substitute for Zach Lovelace, who got injured in that game. And it's just like the thing. Stephen Robinson, as he was today, is in the technical area as the manager of St Mirren, a former Northern Ireland international teammate of Steve Davis's, and there's the greatest Northern Ireland player of all time. More caps for Northern Ireland, more caps for any other team in the British Isles, any other international men's team in the British Isles than any other player. Steve Davis brings on Ross McCausland a few weeks later. Ross McCausland is a fixture in Philip Clement's Rangers and gets his first full cap for Northern Ireland. The people of Northern Ireland, what it means to Rangers, the character, the massive part of the Rangers character made up by Northern Ireland. Why don't we get Harland and Wilders over for a friendly, Rangers? That's something we should do. But Scott last night in the preview pod, using that phrase that so many of us use, that any football observer uses when watching Steve Davis play football, Rolls Royce of a player. I don't think it's any coincidence that the main stand at Ibrox looks like an ocean-going liner. It's Clyde built 1920s. Archibald Leach built that stand, now a listed building. He designed and built it in the 1920s, which is the very decade that I think the Northern Ireland influence hit Rangers hardest and most beautifully. So many people coming over from that part of the world to work in Govan, to work on the ships, and it's shipbuilding, it's Rolls Royce, it's cars, it's industry, and Steve Davis was industry on the part that I just say was. I just don't know how to quit you. I wish I knew how to quit you. Say it isn't so. He's not retired. You've retired. Shut up. I can't deal with the fact that Steve Davis isn't playing for us, but it's already slipping into my language, talking about his playing career in the past tense. Steve Davis, it was economic as well, talking about industry, economical use of the ball at times. There was no ostentation. Again, another characteristic of Rangers, summed up by Stephen Davis, a man who played in the English top flight like it was, just like it was walking the dug. Captained teams in the English top flight, captained his country to the Euros, captained Rangers, only one of 5 players, the 5th player to play for Rangers in 2 different European finals, 4 league titles, 3 Scottish Cups, 3 League Cups. Absolutely fantastic, never wasted the ball. It was all about effectiveness, graceful, incisive, devastatingly skillful player, fast, just determined, and nothing flashy whatsoever, though he did so many flashy things, scoring an overhead kick, as the boys were talking about last night against Celtic in the Scottish Cup to beat them, Old Firm game in the Scottish Cup, scoring a goal against them for the edge of the box in a League Cup final to win an Old Firm League Cup final, scoring the only goal of the game against them, a league game, was that March 2008 or something like that? I can't really remember when it was, 2008, I can't remember, but he scored the only goal of the game against Celtic in the league game. Both cups, scoring against Celtic. And as Scott was saying last night, he scored his penalty in Seville in a European final penalty shootout. Absolutely just phenomenon of a player. And he epitomises everything that Rangers put into that game today. That winning leagues, winning major trophies is about just not stopping, is about not relenting. If it's no pretty, if it's no happening, you're still going to get the job done. It was, I think, James Tavernier hit the post after Dessers put it was a lovely ball over the top from John Lundstrom, just very much like the beautiful, scored the first goal of the game against Dumbarton. He's set up the first goal against Hibs with a beautiful assist. He's set up the only goal of the game today with an equally beautiful assist. John Lundstrom, he's on amazing form again. The boys talking last night about how a lot of us suspect John Lundstrom's just playing really well to get his contract renewed. We're wondering if he's going to stay at Rangers, because his contract's running down at the end of the season. I think we should start worrying about whether somebody else is going to come in and take him. I think Germans usually come in at this moment in time, but everybody else is thinking, oh no, wait a minute, like Paul Lambert, a player, a St Mirren player, a guy who played for the team we're playing against today, and then went to Motherwell, and we think, he's pretty decent. Next thing, Borussia Dortmund come in, take him away and turn him into a Champions League winner, just the same as what Bayern Munich are doing with Eric Dyer, who's a dud at Tottenham these days, bringing him in to help them win the Bundesliga this season for Bayer Leverkusen. So I think we need to watch ourselves. John Lundstrom, might be playing for a move, or might be getting one. The way he's playing is absolutely sensational. And the whole time Philip Clement has been here, I think it's got to the point now. Officially today, it was confirmed it's beyond just like playing to get his contract. You don't play that well unless you're thoroughly enjoying your football, and unless you are just thoroughly good. Few injury problems last season I thought he was fantastic today, John Lundstrom again, in what was not a fantastic game. The manager saying it's the third time that's at Dumbarton last week, the conditions there, and Livingston earlier in the season. This is the third time I can remember this season the manager's called out the state of the pitch before the game. Get your excuses in first and then win the game, as he did today. And saying it's going to be less sexy than other occasions with all the wind and rain today. And yet again, he was proved correct. In the starting 11, a few surprises with the selection, and the amount of surprise in those selections kind of increased as you go through them. John Souttar, a few of us thought it was going to be Balogun. I thought it was going to be Balogun retaining his place tonight because Connor Golson was going to come in and replace one of the centre halves, having served out his suspension at Easter Road during the week. But no, it was John Souttar that retained his place, so that's fair enough. You then got Cyril Dessers starting the game. Now, I thought Silva had kind of ran Hibs ragged in the first half, wore them down a bit like Danilo had done at Dens Park. We won 5-0 up there under Clermont, and then you bring on Dessers to finish them off when they're softened up and slowed down a bit because he's not quite got the pace. So I thought that might have been the same thing today because we're away from home, but no, Dessers starts the game today. Mild surprise, but the guy's into double figures now for the season. He has been since last Saturday, so that's fair enough. Not really that great a surprise. Scott Wright starting on the right-hand side. Ross McCausland being dropped because he's just put in so much time for Rangers under Clermont Young Ross. That's not a great surprise, him getting a rest. But Scott Wright not getting a lot of game time for Rangers at all these days. So it was a bit of a surprise to see him playing. And then Dujon Sterling. Now, the other night, Dujon Sterling was already on the park in the 78th minute when Ryan Kent came on as a substitute for Rabbi Matondo playing wide left. And Rabbi Matondo's dropped today and Dujon Sterling nominally taking his place. The other night, I had to admit, the 78th minute of that game at Easter Road, I checked out. As soon as that substitution was made, I checked out because we were 3-0 up. The tension. What are Rangers going to do when we come back after this winter break? Are we going to go back to the old ways and start slipping up? But no, we needed the third goal to put it to bed. Easter Road the other night, Dessers gets it. And if there had been a pair of sunglasses sat on the kitchen table next to the laptop in which I was watching Hibs TV, I would have put them on and just chilled out. Psychologically, I was smoking a reefer, and I had the Grateful Dead on, and I had the sunglasses on. I just totally checked out, and I cruised mentally watching Rangers cruise literally on the pitch that night. So I didn't take note of what we did tactically at that point because we already had two sitting midfielders in the park. We took Matondo off and brought on another sitting midfielder. So we must have changed things, and I hadn't really worked out what it was. Did we move Sterling to outside left, basically, on Wednesday night as well to trial this thing out? It's quite weird to see him play. I'm like, try to work out. I thought we were going to go a 4-3-3 with three sitting midfielders, but no. Dujon Sterling went wide left, and it seems to have been, though there wasn't much evidence to back this up. I think that in the commentary team they were saying it was trying to have somebody who could get on the end of a high ball, played to the back, played over to the left against it. But maybe they identified a weakness with St Mirren on their right-hand side that someone of Sterling's size could take advantage of. But he really is turning into. He did it once. He got in the end of one once, and it was into the second half. And it was neither one thing or the other. He couldn't get the header on target towards the back post, and there was about two other players he should have squared it to. So maybe it's a bit of a failure in that sense, but we won the game. They won the game, and it seemed to work out okay. And that is him, Dujon Sterling, kind of Dujon William the Fridge Perry Sterling. If you know your NFL, if you know Chicago 1985. That was the Chicago Bears of Mike Ditka who won that the Super Bowl 20. It nearly had a perfect season as well, and they would bring on William the Fridge Perry. Very difficult, very different physically from Sterling. There's not a pick on him, but it would play him in all sorts of positions that you weren't expected to turn up in. That Sterling has come on at both full-back positions under Michael Beale, sitting midfielder. Played that excellently under Philip Clement, and then he's coming on wide left today. And more times than not, we're winning, and the big man is doing absolutely fantastic as that kind of utility player. But yeah, we got there in the end. We had to kind of grind it out. We had the ball. The wind was holding things up. The teams were doing the kind of unusual thing. Rangers are shooting towards the away end in the first half. St Mirren shooting towards their home end in the first half. So there must have been a bit of wind coming back and forth up and down the pitch. Whoever's won the toss is trying to take advantage of that. but it was going across the pitch. It was, I say I'm watching the television, but it was perfectly obvious that everything was getting blown into the St Mirren tunnel. You could have played this game in a five-a-side pitch in the technical areas. At St Mirren Park today, it was just everything that would get any air on it at all just kind of went up and blew over into that tunnel area, quite frankly. So it was about getting the ball on the deck and try to outrun each other. The goal itself, I say that beautiful ball over the top, a lovely dink ball again from John Lundstrom, bestriding the midfield, and Cyril Dessers runs onto it. He actually led the line well today, Dessers. Great all-round play, but there's a little moment. His anticipation's fantastic, his run's fantastic, he's making the space for himself to be first man to it, but it looks like the goalkeeper's going to come out and get it. And I don't know if it's just a little gamble on Dessers' part where he thinks the goalie knows that if he goes in here he's going to bring me down. Or is he judging the wind? Has the ball actually infinitesimally held up in the wind, and Dessers, his beautiful piercing blue eyes, has spotted the fact that that ball was just going to hold up a little second, and he lets the keeper, not make his dive properly, and he takes the ball round him and he slots it in, and it's 1-0. And I'm thinking that's absolutely fantastic. Tav has a shot from the edge of the box which goes off the post, and that is it. I think Cyril had a shot again in the second half that come back off the post. That was as many. We didn't really create a lot of chances, and it was quite a strange game because the moment we scored, St Mirren start coming into the game, and they've got a lot of possession without doing anything with it. And the manager resolved that at half time. He thought we're going to get more possession this game, but not necessarily going to score goals. And it was a funny thing. I noticed the second game in a row, the same thing happened at about exactly the same time at Easter Road the other night, the 38th minute, and it happened again today, where the team Rangers are playing against get a set piece from a poor decision, from something that the officials haven't spotted on the park. And you're thinking we could lose a goal from the set piece, and it's like a VAR protocols becoming aware. That's something that's got to be adjusted, I think, in the protocols. The other night, it was spotted. You can see why the referee didn't spot it. It was a good dive, but it was spotted on Hibs TV, and even Steve Lovell, the Hibs TV co-commentator, is saying that's a complete dive. That shouldn't be a free kick to Hibs. And Tav is saying to the referee, right, you've given him that free kick, but what if they scored this free kick? And they nearly did, Hibs. It was one of the header they had that would just pass the post. VAR's not going to bring it back for the foul that leads to the set piece, for the bad decision that leads to the set piece. Same thing today, around about the same time. St Mirren play a ball over the top of us, it holds up in the wind or whatever, and there's about 3 St Mirren players offside. But I think because they play on, and the linesman's not going to flag until a St Mirren player touches it for offside, the referee's just obviously letting it play out because VAR will come in and take care of any goal that's scored from an offside position if there's any dubiety about it. But Rangers get the ball first and they clear it for a corner. The corner gets played, and Tav's saying to him again, if they score for this corner, you can't take it back for the poor offside, the offside that you didn't give. That's not in the protocols. And somebody said to me, well, but it's just down to bad officials. If the officials in the park could spot that, and I'm like, no, that's the whole point. The VAR everything we're doing with VAR is about building systems into it. Building systems into it that compensate as much as we humanly can for the inevitable, human error that's going to be made during games. And I think that's what Philip Clement has done today with Rangers. It's like, this is a terrible game. There's every chance we might not score a goal in the second half, but I am going to put on players that are going to make sure we have more possession to give us more chance of winning what is going to be a terrible game. We took off Todd Cantwell, and who else went off at half-time? It was Scott Wright. It wasn't happening again. The players that get subbed for each other at half-time in that League Cup semi-final are both coming off together again. And I think this all proves, they both come off today at half-time. Todd Cantwell getting subbed at half-time for third time this season or something like that. Get subbed during the first half, like that game against Aris Limassol at Ibrox. I do worry about Todd. I think the boys we're all talking about this in all the pods just now on Gersnet. I think a lot of us are getting a bit concerned for Todd Cantwell and for his form. And I don't know, this whole thing about my attracting attention, I'm really torn down the middle for it. Because there's a lot of, this is weird, right? It's not weird, but it's maybe a bit political. Games in Paisley today, right? The games in Paisley. And I need to apologise for the other night where I was slagging off the salt and sauce thing for people from Edinburgh, because it's disrespectful, it's hypocritical. I mean, I'm from Ayrshire, and I've not gone all the way with a sheep or anything like that. No, I mean, she's just waiting until we're married. Don't just engage just now, so that's fine. But it's childish, and it's just kind of it's downright kind of myopic, small-minded, because there's obviously Rangers supporters in every single part of the country. It's got Northern Ireland, all over the world, Rangers supporters, but every kind of island, every village, every kind of conurbation. There is Rangers supporters there, and I'm slagging the whole salt and sauce thing and slagging Edmund. It's totally out of order, totally childish, totally disrespectful. I won't do that again. Today's game's in Paisley. It's a great place, Paisley. Great place, Paisley. And did you ever? I don't know. Maybe the part of the world you come from, the trains that get you to the nearest big destination. We had a little euphemism in Ardrossan when I was a kid growing up in Ayrshire, and it was basically the main line. It was a Largs to Glasgow line. That was the main train line that went through Ardrossan, and. If the penultimate station before Glasgow Central, which was the terminus, the end of the line, was Paisley Gilmore Street. So there's a wee kind of euphemism basically for the rhythm method, which was about getting off at Paisley. If that inexorable, powerful train that's just heading to, it's going to arrive at Glasgow. If you didn't want to, get yourself off onto the platform at Glasgow, you would depart the train. You would get off the train at Paisley, the kind of penultimate station. And there was a wee. Did you wear a hat, or did you get off at Paisley? So I don't know if that works for Did you get off at Coatbridge, Sunnyside, whatever part of the world you come from? Maybe there's they say it's a variation on that for the same kind of euphemism. But that was definitely a thing. And I thought it was quite funny when the manager was talking about it being less sexy on other occasions today. Felix Munt was saying it's going to be less sexy now. Just that wee kind of sexual association for Paisley. Also the fact that when I was in my kind of late teens, early 20s, hitting the old Cotton Club, the Cotton Club in Paisley, bit different from a Cotton Club in Harlem, because Paisley, it's always soaking in. You get slagged off for the amount of rain. I mean, the weather we had at Dumbarton last week at the Rock, that's a sunny day. That's a summer's day in Paisley. It was sunny the day, but of course you get a cyclone in place of that. But it's the dampness, the climate in Paisley. It's all about the cotton. It helped the cotton. The cotton didn't come for Paisley though, did it? No, the cotton was just made up in Paisley, and that's what turned it into the wee patterns that had Prince naming his recording studio after a place that's just down the start of the M8. So the Cotton Club, used to go to the Cotton Club and I would dance about to a bit of, a big Darryl Pandy, the Farley Jackmaster funk and that kind of stuff, the house music which came out the gay scene in Chicago, back to Chicago again, 1985, Da Bears, it was that kind of thing, like folk would just start, and it's like when you're young guys, the generation before you, the older guys who were all probably wearing flares and had the long hair and all that in the 70s before me, were all trying to look like, Mark Bolan or whatever, they're kind of go, Big Jesse, Big Jesse dancing to kind of gay music and all that, and he's Darryl Pandy's on Top of the Pops, absolutely fantastic, but he's got to say, and I need you, girl, and you can see him sing to himself, why have I got to sing about a girl when it's obviously blokes that I'm into, and I just feel as if I've moved on for that in life, but so much of the stuff round about Todd Cantwell, can it be homophobic if he himself isn't actually homophobic? It's like androgyphobic. I don't know what you want to say about it. He wears ribbons in his hair and all that. He's kind of blonde, very androgynous. All power to him, but there definitely seems to be something very kind of, he winds me up the wrong way. Not just because of football arrogance or he's a bit of a character or whatever on the park. It just seems to be he's got to get sorted. By guys who are probably wearing like moisturiser and doing putting all sorts of product in their hair and all that. But it's a kind of heteronormative, stereotypical. I don't know if there's a phrase for this, but you're hating a bloke because he doesn't seem what your idea of machismo is. And that's something that's just we've just had all through history. But there's something I'm stuck between thinking he brings a lot onto himself, Todd Cantwell, and also thinking some of the stuff that he has to deal with is just completely out of order. He's getting battered for pillar to post today by the St Mirren players, and it's only when he responds once that the referee decides to pull him up for it. So I don't know. The manager has given him as much of a chance as possible. It doesn't seem to be wanting to play him for a whole game these days. He keeps persisting with Todd Cantwell. He knows he's a great player, but he's not quite. He's not anything like the player he was under Michael Beale, which is weird because Beale obviously was a horrendous manager. But it's just culturally, I think it's a really kind of interesting thing and quite a depressing thing as well. But Todd Cantwell, off he went at half time, and we brought on Tom Lawrence to play in the 10 position. And who bring on for Scott Wright? We brought Ross McCausland back on. I say we plugged away, in total hypocrisy from me. At St Mirren were reduced to a couple of balls into our box. And the first hypocrisy is, I'm like, oh my God, Rangers, shut them down, because that with that wind, it could go anywhere. And yet, when Rangers look like they're trying to lump a ball into the St Mirren box, I'm like, what is the point of that, Rangers? That ball's just going to go anywhere. I mean, you've got to keep it under control. You've got to be perfect, And then the referee's whistle. St Mirren, something hit our woodwork, or that kind of tubular aluminium. We give that kind of atonal thwack at some point today, and with about 5 minutes to go, and I basically evacuated my bowels. I just thought, that's it, we've chucked it. It's the post-winter break blues again. We've chucked it there. But I don't know if it was Jack Butland, Super Jack Butland in goals, or the ball, or a St Mirren striker, or whatever that hit it. I was just looking at it through my fingers by that point in time. I was so nervous. And yet, the second the final whistle went, with 2 peeps of a referee's whistle, just turned that, everything's gone to pot, we're doomed attitude straight into, that's the kind of performance that wins you league titles. Total hypocrisy from your fat correspondent here, but aye, it was really good to get through this game, to get the points on board. Made a few other substitutions the second half, none of which spring to mind, because it was just all about digging it out. And for me, it was all about Steve Davis as well. Even though he wasn't playing, every time we went back to him in the studio in the gantry, I just started getting, really, he suffers from what Jonathan Van Ness would call, I don't know how hot I am itis. He's so down to earth. He's so humble, and it's the same. When you think about him and Alan McGregor when they both come back to Rangers under Steven Gerrard, that's what they brought with them as well. They're different types of characters, but they're different types of down to earthness, different types of humbleness. With Davis, it's just almost shy, and with McGregor, it's just kind of, oh, shut up, everything's right down to earth, and that's a massive part of the belief that they installed in that Rangers team. Why are we going to try and go through the whole season unbeaten? Because you're at Rangers, that's what we used to do here, so we're going to do that again. You think we're going to get to a European final 10 years after being in the bottom? You're at Rangers, we get to European finals. That's what happens here. Stevie D and Alan McGregor, both no longer playing for Rangers, quite an unbearable thought. Although I have to say, Jack Butland deserves a mention. I actually think Jack Butland, I don't give him half the praise he's due, because he's just like the background. He's like the woodwork at the goals. He's like the strip. He's like the corner flag. He's just something you just assume is going to be there doing what he does. He's done that already. When he first arrived at Rangers, it was all about him just commanding his box. That made a massive difference for me. Every time there was a high ball going into our box, I didn't realise how traumatised myself or the entire Rangers defence had been by the legend that is Alan McGregor, just getting into his senior years, being allowed to stay too long, or failure to replace him properly. Nobody able to come out and command his box, nobody able to take a ball out there. It was causing absolute palpitations. But I think it's one of the reasons we didn't win the title 2 years in the trot. Only lost that title by 4 points, but Giggs couldn't get off his line. Still on his line, he was amazing, taking us to European finals. But that was the thing. I think that was almost spectacular to me when Jack Butland arrived. And it wasn't until I think he played that game against Sparta Prague away from home, Clermont's first European game in charge of us, and it was, they were battering us something terrible. He pulled off a couple of cracking saves, a double save, just like Alan McGregor did in Gio's first European game in charge, first game in charge against Sparta Prague at Ibrox. Fantastic double save that you thought, yeah, the gloves have been handed over. It's Chris Woods, it's Gorham, it's McGregor, peak McGregor, and it's now Jack Butland. He's a phenomenal keeper. 2 cracking saves at the start of each half the other night against Hibs, real tone setters, and again today, a couple of cracking saves when we really needed them. And the rest of the team, they just got on with it. But I'm going to have to talk to you. I'm going to have to go off on one a bit here, folks. You'll understand why. There's a famous clip on YouTube of the Smiths doing Barbarism Begins at Home. Look it up. It's from the programme called The Tube. I think it's 7 minutes and 1 second. If you look up the Smiths Barbarism Begins at Home, it'll come up with 2 videos, I think 2 thumbnails. It's the one that looks a bit clearer. It's a better picture. It's both of the same performance, and it's 7 minutes something, maybe 7 minutes 1 second or something. Get on that. Also get on the Top of the Pops showing of Daryl Pandy, Farley, Jack Master Funk going Love Can't Turn Around. It's the one that's 3 minutes 1 second. It's the BBC one. Good mnemonic. There's 2 thumbnails will come up. One he's wearing the green shiny top. That's the official video. Don't click on that one. Don't click on the green. Click on the one where he's wearing the blue shiny top, Big Daryl. And that's absolutely fantastic. That's his Top of the Pops performance. Fantastic. Get yourself on that to enjoy your Saturday night. But that clip of the Smiths, it's basically the start of the Manchester scene. There's a lot of things, Chicago House and all that. A lot of things started the Manchester scene, but this performance is absolutely a seminal moment in that because of the song itself, but it's only partly because of like Johnny Marr's famously jangly guitar and Morrissey's iconic vocals. The thing about this song and the performance really, this is on the Tube, the old program used to be on Channel 4, the old music program used to be on Channel 4 and tea time on a Friday. It's that Marr and Morrissey, the two most famous people of the Smiths, they just stopped doing their jobs. And it's gradually, it's like the opposite of the Talking Heads Stop Making Sense thing, where the band comes on one member at a time, one instrument at a time. Through this song, they eventually stop. Morrissey stops singing towards the end of the song, and then Johnny Marr, who I mean, he kicks the shit out of Johnny Marr. It's some of the most funkadelic guitar sounds you'll ever hear. It's tremendous, Johnny Marr. Yeah, we know he's a legend, but this is what a performance by him. Absolutely amazing. But then he stops as well and just lets the rhythm section go on. And of course, eventually, Andy Rourke, he's the bassist, he stops and lets Mike Joyce, the drummer, just see the song out. But Morrissey and Marr, the two iconic members of the Smiths, they just start dancing. They're just getting down, enjoying the funky groove. This groove that's going to lead to, say, the whole Manchester scene. They just let them take over, and it's they're getting down this kind of funky groove, and it's an iconic, seminal, genre defining, and a genre-setting performance. And the most beautiful thing, and this might be a stretch, I don't know, but I can't help thinking about it, is the most beautiful thing with Steve Davis and Alan McGregor was the way they played, obviously. Just watching them, the way they played. I mean, Werder Bremen getting us to a European final under Walter, when Walter came in and just, as I say, only 4 seasons, full season in charge of Rangers, his second spell, and we won 2 of the 3 major trophies in each of those 4 seasons, and 3 times it was a league title. 3 times it was league title, and it was what we didn't win. We also got to a European final. The year we didn't win the league, it's because we were getting to a European final. Had played more games than any other team in the history of Scottish football, more competitive matches than ever had been played before, and we lost the league on the last day. We won the Scottish Cup, won the League Cup, and when we lost the League Cup final to Celtic, with Celtic scoring a goal and a penalty, one of the penalties they never get against us in the last minute of extra time. We lost the Scottish Cup to Dundee United. They put us at the Scottish Cup after a replay with a deflected goal in like the last minute up at Tannadice, and that was the night that at today's venue Celtic beat 4-0 or 4-1, and that was what's the fella's name? I can't remember. Tony Mowbray. He was done for. He gets sacked, and that was they weren't going to win the league, and we lost that Scottish Cup match at Parkhead, but it was after a replay at Ibrox, and the Police were involved and all that, and there was like 2 Rangers players sent off, and we lost it by a goal. It's amazing. And Steve Davis was ill before the game we played St Mirren in the Scottish League Cup final. Today's opponents in the League Cup final. We'd lost a few players before that game, a few major players. So Steve Davis plays and has to go off at half time, but he's played sick. He's been sick while he's played to set the tempo. We lose 2 players in the second half to red cards, and then score the only goal of the game. And this is the character that McGregor and Steve Davis forged under Walter Smith in that period. It's not just about the victories and everything. It's about the defeats, the few times that we lost. Even they were epic. They took it to the last second, the last game, the last possible moment. And I feel as if when they come back to Rangers under Steven Gerrard, they helped us. The idea that Rangers died, and that kind of thing. And that's a lot of people, maybe a bit of bitterness towards them for leaving the club, even though they took a cut in wages at first when Rangers first went into administration. They took a cut in wages to play on for Rangers. But Rangers didn't die, but the Rangers they had signed for definitely left them. And then it went down to they hadn't signed up, they hadn't been playing for a 4th tier club. But they come back under Steven Gerrard, and they brought all that spirit and everything back, and they helped kill off the very time. The very reason that they left in the first place, they helped kind of kill that off and just unite the 2 periods. Just the Rangers' domination of Walter Smith's second coming, and the domination that Rangers are supposed to have over Scottish football, the club we are, the size that we are, and they instilled it back in that dressing room, and as the only 2 guys from that period that were ultimately still there when we won 55 and we got back to a European final. It was, for me, they were the kind of moral rhythm section. They were the emotional rhythm section, the belief rhythm section that was finally getting. It's when they were first at Rangers, they were playing with, Carlos Cuellar and Davy Weir and you'd Boyd and Barry Ferguson, Kevin Thomas. That players were playing alongside absolutely immense. Not so much they are now. They're legends now. The guys they played with in their second spell, but they helped make them that. You can imagine Morelos and Kent and Scotty Arfield especially. All these guys being the kind of jangly guitar of Johnny Marr and the over emotional singing of Morrissey. You imagine him being like that in the dressing room and on the part, but they needed that basis, that rhythm section that was just going to ground them and going to tell them when things were going wrong and keep them focused at the same time, tell them how much they should believe as well and winning everything. You remember Griggs after that. We lost the goal in the last minute against Hamilton Accies, even though the league was already practically in the bag by February. He was absolutely raging and he played brilliantly throughout of it. They kept us, no ostentation, as I say. They just kept our feet totally on the ground, and I think that was the third dimension to their kind of their Rangers legend. Was that they just took everything that we had pre-liquidation, and they made sure that it was going to be applying to us again post-liquidation, and we really were going to go over that. They helped set the pace on the park, just the way that Johnny Marr and just the way that Andy Rourke and Mike Joyce set the pace for the Smiths of the leitmotif. They were our rhythm section. Steve Davis and Andy Rourke, the basis for the Smiths. He died 19th of May last year, and it was 4 days before Al McGregor played his last game for Rangers. It's absolutely unbelievable. Well, for me anyway. Maybe if you're not into Smith, that's not a biggie. But and then of course we have. Steve Davis basically played his last game in December last year for Rangers that we didn't know at the time. We hoped against hope that it wouldn't be. I mean, he's like Lester Piggott. He's built like a jockey. You just think he looks about 12. You just think he's going to play forever. Steve Davis, and I'm absolutely gutted that he didn't. I got to see Alan McGregor for his entire Rangers career. Same with Stephen Davis. Just communicate all my thanks to them all the time. But I just want to see Steve Davis one more time. Get him out at half time against Livingston, Ross County, somebody. We're talking about testimonials and stuff like that to get arranged, but just get him on the park shortly so we can all tell him how much he's loved. And I saw him at Manchester, home of the Smiths, in that European final for Rangers. You've got Sandy Jardine, John Gregg, Dave Smith, and Willie Johnston, the only guys to have played in 2 European finals for Rangers, and then Steve Davis, who played. I feel as if McGregor is. I keep instinctively thinking McGregor played 2 European finals for Rangers, but it was like McGregor, that game against Werder Bremen, the home and away game against Werder Bremen 2008. It's Steve Davis that does the business at home. His first goal for Rangers is putting us 2-0 up against Werder Bremen. The belief he creates that goal as well. He forges it out of nothing and he finishes it off. And in the second leg, the greatest save I've ever seen in my life, Rangers goalkeeper from Alan McGregor amid the onslaught in Bremen, it helps us get through that game. And that's when you knew, that's when it's like, this is happening. We're getting to a European final for the first time in my knowing life. I was only 2 when we got to the final one in Barcelona. And I was born. I saw the Smiths. I got to see the Smiths just once live, and I got to tell them how much I loved them to their faces once. And it was in Irvine, which is actually the town I was born in. Grew up in Ardrossan, but you'd go to the maternity ward was in Irvine, and I saw the Manchester scene, the home of it. Down in Manchester, I saw Steve Davis, and I got to adore him down there at a place that I knew I could die happy. I'd seen Rangers in a European final, and with Alan McGregor, I feel as if he's like Willie Henderson or Ronnie McKinnon, whose efforts against not Sporting Lisbon in particular. Ronnie McKinnon, that's where he broke his leg against Willie Henderson, scored a third goal in both legs. That amazing tie, where every goal counted, against a Sport Club de Portugal of Lisbon. In that second round of the European Cup, Winners' Cup in 72, and I feel as if Al McGregor's like that with Manchester. Neil Alexander takes over in the semi-finals and the final, but it feels as if it's as much down to McGregor as well, that one, but he made up for it. Davis played all of the game in Manchester, the final in Manchester, in Seville. He come on with about quarter of an hour to go, but then plays all of extra time, and as Scott was saying in last night's pod, he scores his penalty in a shootout there. Alan McGregor plays the whole 120 minutes plus all the penalties, so he definitely made up for it. And the one European final he did play, he played longer than any other Rangers player had played in a European final. All right, don't start talking about the fact it was 2 legs against Fiorentina. In a 1.5 game, right? Okay. But I'm trying to do something here. I better round this up because I'm just talking absolute nonsense. But for me, they were our emotional rhythm section. The kind of it's not the Manchester scene that Davis and McGregor established. It's just the Mad Rangers scene, the current Rangers scene. The fact that we're now in this situation with this manager we've got just now, where I think we're going to certainly win more than one trophy this season for the first time since the pre-2012 days. That doesn't happen without Al McGregor and without the miraculous, beautiful player that is Steve Davis. I'm really going to miss him. So yeah, tomorrow night we're going to have on the pod, the flagship pod, the main pod, the pod that makes Jersey what it is. We're going to have, I think it's Brian who's hosting, and it's David and Rob. So that's going to be a great pod, guys. They'll go on to give you a much more sober analysis of today's game. And yeah, we're going to get Hefty, the lefty from Fluminense. Maybe he's going to come in next week. We're going to have a few more signings, the manager said. I just want to leave you with a poem. I wrote this down because it's I'm so emotional that I made it. But it's by a young poet, the best kind of poetry to come out of Belgium since Paul Verlaine tried to shoot Arthur Rimbaud in the bedroom and missed. And it's called Resilience, Hunger, Desire, and it's by a young Belgian poet called P. Clement. Resilience, hunger, desire. I see more and more winners. And that we needed today, resilience, hunger, desire. To have winners, not fancy footballers or players who wanted to show that they are good, resilience, hunger, desire. But players who wanted to win, resilience, hunger, desire. To win as much points as possible in all circumstances. This is the second and final stanza. One of the reasons I came to Rangers, Craig, James, the chairman, it's really transparent. Everybody's working hard. Craig, James, the chairman, investors. We make decisions together. We work together. Everybody has his opinion. Craig, James, the chairman, investors. Everybody has his opinion. We say things behind closed doors. We go out with one opinion: to win as much points as possible in all circumstances. I know, pretty moving stuff, folks. Pretty moving, pretty amazing. I'm going to let that marinate. I should probably, after this, be getting sacked as your Jersey post-match reaction contributor, and yeah, that's fine. But what a way to go out! I think I was really moved this week with it. I saw the two videos one day after the other with Steve Davis at Murray Park. I'm calling it Murray Park. that's who built it, wasn't it? Steve Davis, the guy who goes to the European final. Steve Davis up there at Auchenhowie in the training centre. There's a speech getting made for him, and he's making his wee speech. And I thought it was really weird that the next day we get to see the Mohamed Diomande, him leaving North Zealand, and I don't think it was in their training centre. I think are they in a training camp somewhere in America or something like that? But that was really moving as well. What a club they are to play for. You can see that he's been raised really well over there, really looked after. Great family feeling from that video. That was really emotional. But did you notice the woodwork? It was like a reprising the woodwork at Auchenhowie, in which Davis was saying goodbye. It was the same kind of brown panelling on it, the same colour of woods, and the big kind of whitewashed walls as well, all round Diamande. So hopefully, if he can take on any part of the Steve Davis aura to represent the Rangers midfield, then we're going to be doing well. God, folks, I better say goodbye. And live from New York, it's Saturday night. Except, of course, most of the Saturday Night Live team came from the Second City Comedy Club in Chicago, home of House and home of the Bears.